Hello and welcome to everyone here at Growth Hacking and Outbound Marketing. I'm Gerard Comte and I'm going to be your host. And today we have Ian Ipollito. And I would like to say Ian has been one of those top growth hacking, but we didn't even know what was growth hacking. He's been in Wall Street, in Bloom, and the Times. He sold his company, what he's going to be talking a little bit more about his past to freelancers.com, but now he is doing real estate crowdfunding reviews.com and also Ipollito Investor and Etc. Solutions. Also, he was founder of Planet Source Code and a few other things that he's going to be talking to us. He's from Merritt Island, Florida. He's married to Elise and with one happy kid. Ian, welcome to the group. I'm super happy to have you here today.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here.
Tell me, I've been following you for a while. Tell me a little bit, how did you start at all this internet business a few years back?
Oh, well, I mean, that was a while ago. So, my last business was, really the way that I started it off was I was working for somebody else. I was working for as a consultant. Actually, the really first way I started off was working as an employee for other people. And I was like, well, you know what? I really don't like this. I would really like to, work on my own and make my own decisions about things. And so the first thing that I did was, I became a consultant because I thought that was the way to do it. And it was better than being an employee, but still, you have to do what other people tell you. And a lot of times I had ideas, but I was so young. People were like, oh, we're not going to listen to him, So I wanted to try my own ideas and I wanted to, see where they would go. So the idea was that, and at the time, the internet was just starting to become a thing. This was a long time ago. This was back when the internet was like, you had to be on AOL and you'd call in with a modem and it was really slow. But I thought, wow, here's an opportunity where I could create a business online, and it would be a completely new thing, not tethered to the traditional world where there was a lot of barriers. And that's kind of how it all started. And I started this one company, which, didn't go so well. It was my first company, right? So it was like I started a little software company. And, I don't think I sold a single piece of software on that particular company. But I learned so many things from the mistakes that I made. And then from that, I built the second company. And the second company was more successful. And then from that, another company. And I just kept repeating over and over again.
That sounds amazing. And I think, was it WeWork one of your first successes? Was it the second or the third company that you built?
Let's see. So I think it started off as, so really it was probably the third or fourth company was Planet Source Code. Yes. And then Planet Source Code became the start of something. And Planet Source Code was a site where it shared source code for computer programmers, which at the time, it's called open source today, but at the time it didn't really have a name. And that became very popular, it was getting, many millions of people coming in every single month. But what happened is the .com crash came. And then so .com crash came and all of a sudden all my advertisers dried up. What had been a fantastic business all of a sudden went downhill very quickly. So I had to quickly pivot and into what you talked about, which was actually the first version of the site was called Rent-A-Coder. And it was a way for people to rent computer programmers. Yes. And so that was the very first version of it. And, it grew. It started off as just programmers and it grew to, hundreds of thousands of users, eventually expanding to all types of virtual work, became vWorker, was purchased in 2013 by freelancer.com. So it just, it was one of those things that grew, but it took a long time. It was not something that happened overnight.
I love the thing is, and I've been kind of analyzing why these things happen, obviously, but do you I think the content that you write is amazing. The way you're engaging the people is amazing. And I think it's most of us as a growth hacker, we think, yeah, I just throw any pinch of information and that's it. Tell me a little bit the process and how was it? How did you acquire millions of users on, let's say, on the first Rent-A-Coder and what became, and how, if you can tell me a little bit about that beautiful type of finance that you were building at the time.
Sure. Well, maybe, so with Rent-A-Coder, I actually took what I had with Planet Source Code, which were a bunch of programmers, and brought them over. So I kind of had an advantage there. So maybe it would be more interesting, I don't know, to talk about how Plant Source Code started, because I already had millions of people by then
Yeah,
coming,
exactly. Plain
and it
source code
wasn't
would be
very
nice.
difficult to move them over. Yeah, but with Plant Source Code, yeah, I was starting from scratch. And yeah, I do think that it requires, the ability to communicate in a way that is good for the audience. And, a lot of times that's kind of like making things that are complicated really simple. So, I spent a lot of time, hopefully trying to make things very easy to understand. And in that case, I kind of had a killer app, which was the fact that no one else had this idea of sharing the source code online. And for a programmer, that's really
GitHub
valuable.
now?
Source code are like
GitHub? Is it
what
called
I'm
GitHub now, isn't
oh,
it?
like Red Hat, and yes, so there's all these sites now that do that. But at the time, no one really thought about it. But it's such a powerful thing to do, because if you're a programmer, now you can just build on somebody else's work. It's much faster, it's much efficient. So my big thing, the big way I was able to bring people in, was that I identified this thing that kind of no one really was doing, and I figured out a way to make it available from the internet. And then I got the users themselves to publicize it, because they were able to post up what they were doing, and they would be proud of it, and I would give them the tools to be able to say, hey, here's what I'm working on, take a look at this. They could interact with other programmers and comment, and so it grew, and it really was kind of an organic thing. It grew. It took time. It was not a fast thing. I mean, I want to say first year or two, it was very, very slow. But over time, it just built and built and built, and just got faster and faster. And then pretty soon, then it became like a snowball, and then just got really, really fast.
And then it's when you build Rent-A-Coder, isn't it?
That's right. So I did Plant Source Code for many years, and it was a very profitable business, because it was just internet advertising, and I had no expenses. It was just almost all profit. Great business. And I still have Plant Source Code today, but it's not the same. Back then, people would pay you ridiculous amounts of money for advertising. They would pay you 60 CPM to show a little 468 by 60 banner, which is ridiculous by today's standards. I mean, you might get like 50 cents for the same thing today. So, so it was a great business while it lasted.
I don't want to ask your age, but we love to. Obviously, I think time is changing so much. I mean, some of the guys in the office are like just 5 years under myself, and it's like, wow, it just changed so much, the way they communicate and everything, and it's amazing. Like things like 60, and the way how it has grown, the publicity and everything. We are not so aware. It's amazing that you're telling us this. Also, how did you start getting the people on Planet Source? Did you pay advertisement? I mean, for me, that would be real growth hacking, isn't it, in a way?
That's right. Well, and this was before Google, actually. So this was a long time ago. This was around the time of a company.
I need to write this down.
Yeah.
Before Google. There's nothing before Google for me before. I love it, man.
Well, so before Google, there was a company called Overture, which actually really created the whole cost per click model, which was the idea that you could come in and you would buy based on the clicks. But at the time, it wasn't super great. So I wasn't able to use that back then to really bring in a lot of people. I had to rely on more organic methods kind of to bring them in. So what I would do is I would go to places where my audience is programmers. So I would go online. It was much more primitive back then, but you could still do it. I would go online to the places where my audience was hanging out, and I would interact with them. So it would kind of be the equivalent today of going into maybe, boards or, maybe, yes, exactly. It's the equivalent of that. And so going to where they were, talking to them, answering questions, providing useful information, they would say, oh, well, you know what? I'm having a problem with my program doing this. How do I solve this problem? And I would say, oh, well, you know what? It's pretty funny that, on my site, there's this thing that's been posted. It's a huge program. It does exactly what you're looking to do. Here it is. So I wasn't being intrusive when I would go, and I was always very respectful. I would not just spam them or just say, hey, here's my site. I would be giving them something that was useful to them. people responded to that very well. So I was able to build the community up slowly over time that way, and then pretty soon, then people would talk. Then there was kind of a snowball effect where people would talk to their friends about it, and it would grow faster and faster.
I love, Ian, you know what you're telling me now, I love it because it's okay. And I'm going to resume what you say. It's like in 3 steps: go where your audience is, answer the questions that solve problems, do not be intrusive, and build a community. And I think this is
Yes, yeah.
it's timeless, and this is like it was before and like it's now and how it's going to be in the future. I'm sure this will not change. It's like when you give value, and I think some of the things that I heard in other interviews, how you, but also your mind and your ideas, you were doing it. This was many before, like we were listening about inbound marketing, or I think your mind, you should be doing ebooks and stuff, because a lot of people was doing that after you. And if you can tell me the strategy that you were using as well, I think it was for Rent a Code or later on, that you were giving an ebook, split it up 4 times, and that was
Yes.
before MailChimp and anything else existed. If you can tell me a little
Yes.
bit about that.
Okay, well, it's a pretty standard concept today, but at the time I was like, well, how do I find some other way to drive traffic? And my main source of traffic at the time was affiliate marketing, because I
Mm.
found that, because my website was selling a product for money, so it was pretty easy to do, and I could say, hey, if you refer someone else to my website and I make money off of them, I'm going to share the profits with you. So that was a great source of leads. Then that was my number one source. But I really needed to diversify into something else. So I thought, okay, to grow this, I need to take it to the next level. So what I did was I kind of thought about, so my site was called Rent-A-Coder, and it was about hiring programmers. And I thought, what are the questions that people typically have about hiring a programmer? What are the difficulties that they have? What are the problems that they run into? If I
Mm.
could create something that would answer all these things in one little place,
Ebook.
I bet you, yeah, I bet you it would drive a lot of traffic. So it was an ebook. So it took a long time to create something of value. It had to be written very simply, because it's a complicated topic, managing programmers, and most people aren't technical. So how do you handle managing these people that are doing something that you don't even understand what they're doing? So I really spent a lot of time on simplifying it. I spent a lot of time on the formatting and and making, bolding the important points, making it so that someone could skim through it and read it at about 1/50th of the time of someone taking a careful read, and that it still made sense. A lot of things like that. Working on the pictures, reducing content. I mean, it's just like the temptation is just to throw a bunch of stuff out there. Just trying to make it as compelling as possible, and it worked great. I mean, you saw. I think maybe you mentioned. I ended up being interviewed by different news programs and all sorts of things. And part of it was that ebook, which established me as an credible expert on this. And then people spread the ebook around, and then people linked to it, and so it just was good from a lot of ways.
I love what you're saying. And what was the funnel and how you were giving the ebook? And we're talking a lot about the past. I want to go in the future and what you're doing right now. But how are you? How did you do this ebook? How you were sharing it?
Oh, well, so let's see. I mean, as many ways as I possibly could. So, I created the ebook, put it in a couple different formats so that, people, maybe they might read it by PDF, or, who knows how or maybe it's a Word document, or, however they're going to be viewing it. And then, when I put it up on the internet, and I think I first distributed it out to all the site members, because I figured, oh, they might share it with people that they know. I started doing that. And then I kind of did the same thing that I did with the Planet Source Code, where I went to places where I knew that people would be discussing the answers that I had, and I said, "Hey guys, hey, you're talking about, oh man, you're so bummed out because you just hired this programmer and they ripped you off, and you can't get your website developed. Did you know? Here's a couple of really easy techniques that you could have done that would have made a difference. Here's a link to my to my ebook. So I went to places where people had the problem. Again, not obtrusively and not trying to be a jerk about it or like really sticking myself in there, giving them useful information that they wanted, and got a very good response that way.
I love it. Also, I heard that you were when you were sending emails, you were splitting up the ebook and before MailChimp, and you were doing kind of like emailing and outbound at the same time, which is obviously I love it when we hear things like that. Ian, can you tell me what are you doing now, which I think is like obviously with your experience over the years, and tell me what is real estate crowdfunding and what you do there.
Sure. So real estate crowdfunding, most people have heard of crowdfunding, which is the idea of taking a whole bunch of people taking money and maybe doing it for a good cause or maybe to, develop a new product. But what real estate crowdfunding is taking that same idea, but applying it to investing. So the idea is like in the past, real estate has actually been a very, very solid investment, returned on comparable to the stock market, which is where most people put most of their money, but actually done it with less volatility, safer. But the problem is that real estate's really expensive to buy. Like to get into real estate, to buy a small, tiny little apartment complex, it's a couple $1 million. Mm-hmm. So most people don't have a couple $1 million to buy that. And so it really was out of reach, kind of this institutional investment. So what real estate crowdfunding is that said, hey, let's allow everyone to be able to invest. So let's take it so we can just take little bits of money from each individual person and cooperate together to buy a piece of property. And so the idea there is very powerful. The individual investor, one, can get access to these things that they couldn't before, get a better return. It's safer because they can diversify across numerous things, and they can diversify across different parts of the country, different, wherever. So it's really good from an investor point of view. So I kind of got into this space. I was like wanting to invest my own money, and I found all these platforms out here, and there were hundreds. And I was like, well, which one do I put my money with? It's like, this is a great idea, but some of them kind of seem sketchy, and some of them seem good. Which ones do I use? So I started off, again, I guess it's a little bit like I did the ebook or whatever, but basically I kind of went and I had problems of my own, and I solved them, where I was like, okay, I went and I looked at all these different websites. I took like 3 months. I analyzed hundreds of websites. I interviewed investors, asked them which ones they liked, and then I kind of created my own ranking of which ones I liked, which I thought were the best. And what happened is kind of like I was talking about it in investor groups, and then people were like, hey, Ian, can you share your list with me? I said, oh, okay, sure, I'll share you my list. And then over time, more and more people started asking for it. And then pretty soon I was like, okay, there's way too many people asking me for this list. I don't have the time for this. I'll just put it out on a website. So I put it out on this website, and it got popular. So at the time, and just more and more people started viewing it. It eventually, because of that, I became an expert in the area. I got interviewed by Bloomberg News. I got interviewed by these different people.
Again,
I was looking for. Yes, exactly. So it's kind of the similar idea. And so I created this website. I'm looking at it right now. It's not as large as the Planet Source Code audience because it's much more specialized. Just these small investors, not that many. But it's getting over 10,000 viewers per month. I've got 1,500 in an email subscriber list in pretty short time. And the exciting thing is I now have over 900 members in this private club with over $500 million in investable assets that they are interested in deploying. So in this private club behind the site, we analyze investments, we negotiate better terms because we have a lot of money together as a pool. And so it's just been a really good thing.
How about, let's say I'm a real estate investor here in Spain. Can I come to the real estate crowdfunding and can I be part? And how much is the minimum and how much is the maximum?
Yes, so you can do it from overseas. It is a little bit more difficult because you have to set up a U.S. company, or you have to have some sort of U.S. identification number. Okay. But what a lot of people do is they'll just set up it's not hard to do. There's places you can do it online where you can set up a company, and you might pay, maybe pay $100 or $200 a year to keep it going.
If you go to Stripe, it's called Atlas, and it costs no time. And you can build a company. It's $500, but it's via Stripe, for example. And I think that well, it's very simple for the Spanish guys to build a company. if anyone's interested, is there.
That's a perfect example. So then it's just a matter of then picking the ones that you're interested in, and the minimums range. I mean, there are a few that are like $500. I'd say that that's not average. The average is probably closer to like $5,000. So, and of course, there's some that are ridiculously expensive. There are some that'll have a minimum of $250,000. But it definitely ranges, and people. It's just a nice asset that people can put their money into. Maybe in Spain, they're wanting to diversify into a different economy. The U.S. economy right now is doing pretty good. So, our unemployment is very low. We're raising interest rates because it's so strong. So it might be an opportunity to diversify into something else.
Obviously, we will share if anyone in the group be willing to come and this to real estate crowdfunding reviews. Also, Ian, if you can tell me, how did you grow the community in the real estate crowdfunding? I think also a lot came from your background, and where do you think it's going to go in the future?
Sure. So like I was talking about, the main way was just by it was the same thing as playing at source code, because I found something of value that I created and gave it away for free, and that just drew an audience in. Obviously, it's been a lot of work since then, because it's like to keep it going. We were talking before the show, and you said that you looked up the crowdfunding review, and there's somebody advertising on that keyword. Yeah. So it's a constant battle. You have to watch out for competitors. Always. Now I'm working, like on SEO and keeping my articles ranked highly. I blog a lot, which that blogging is like, it really drives in a lot of traffic. And it keeps my Google rankings up. So I create comprehensive guides to things. Again, that's a great SEO tactic to bringing in, if you can create a comprehensive guide that answers almost everything on a topic, and then you get a bunch of links into it, you have a good chance of Google ranking you up very highly. So the site is ranked up very highly in a lot of ways.
It's funny because I've seen, obviously, some of the guys are outbound, some more are inbound, and I can see like you are more like an SEO, right value, and getting out there. For me, it's very difficult, which I congratulate you, because I think most of the success, obviously, luck helps, but writing amazing ebooks or writing amazing posts, I think it's a key for you, and I think it's something that I take with me, because I love to do videos, I love to do transcripts, but it's taking me time to bring those ebooks. It's a lot of work today, but it's grateful because it's passive value later, isn't it, in a way?
Yes, but you're so right. I think a lot of people don't do it because it is a lot of work to do it well. And then you're like, well, is this really going to pay off? And I have a million other things that I'm doing today. Do I really want to do it? But yes, I found that it works. And I don't want to say I don't do any of the other type of marketing, because I do. I mean, once I get a lead on the site, I try to juice as much out of that lead as I can. So, I'll try to get as much information about them. I will send them a steady drip campaign of, information to try to get them more engaged in the site and kind of educate them on all the resources that are there. So I try to do as much as I can in all the different areas.
What tools do you use for doing drip campaigns?
Well, it's embarrassing, but I'm using right now. I'm using Wix, which is Wix is what uses the website, and so they have it's a very crude tool. It's not perfect, but and it doesn't do everything I'd like it to do, but I tell you, it does probably about 80% of the things that I want done.
Yeah, Mike.
So
you have done it. You can use whatever tool. Doesn't matter if it worked for you. This is showing. Tool is relevant to the success of how you use it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Sometimes I get a little frustrated with the tool, and I talk to Wix, and it's because I have kind of one of their larger uses of this, so they do listen to me, which is nice. So I'd like them to improve it.
I think they're from Israel, aren't they?
Yes, exactly.
They're a pretty big company. I know some of the guys in there from a long time ago.
Yes, they're great. I mean, and they listen and all that sort of stuff. So I really like how responsive they are.
Good. I'm happy that you. We have learned a few hacks from you today, but can you tell us some life hacks that you had applied and that you would recommend to everyone in the group?
Other hacks, huh? You say live hacks then?
Yeah, life hacks. Something that, for example, for me, it's like it will be a morning routine. Sometimes even that I can do is waking up at 6, blah blah blah. Like for you, any life hack
Oh.
on when is the best time to write, or when something that you apply to you that you think it's something that it's for you only, that could be beneficial for
Yes,
everyone.
yes. Okay, I'll tell you one of my secret life hacks, which is and I didn't invent it myself. I mean, I got it from a book that I read, and at first I thought, oh, I don't know about this, but I found it. It's like really, really great, and it's this idea of eating a frog every day. So what that means is that you take a look at your list of the worst. You look because your list builds up over time, right?
Yes.
And you get these things that just sit on your list and they're there day after day after day, and they get and the idea is that they kind of take your psychic energy away when you see this huge list of things that you think you'll probably never get to. So the idea is that every morning, first thing when you're freshest, take the hardest thing on your list and just do it. So you eat one frog every day. That's what it's called.
Oh, I see.
It is it's transformative. I mean, when I got that idea, all of a sudden being able to take out that first, even though that first thing on the list usually takes a long time to do, you know, the rest of my day once I finish that is so much more productive. So that was a very counterintuitive thing that I found that at first I thought, I don't know about this, but I found has been just fantastic.
I love it, and it's something that's certainly going to apply because we do leave the heart for never or tomorrow, which is the same. And with the first one book that changed your life.
Ooh, so many books that changed my life. Pick one. You know what? I will pick. This is kind of an older book,
Yeah, go for
but
it.
it's a okay. It's a self-help book by Tony Robbins called Unlimited Power, and it's about
Love it.
the power of yeah, it's about the power of goal setting. And I never really heard about the power of goal setting. I was just a young kid, and I was like amazed by this idea that you can set goals and you can visualize them every day, and if you have us working toward them, where every day you do a little bit more,
Mm.
how powerful that is. I never really understood that until I read the book, and it changed my life. I applied that to everything.
I love Anthony Robbins, and I have I think all the free stuff that he has on YouTube. I read a few books. I think I'm going to go back to this Unlimited Power. I'm putting on the list for me next week. Ian,
Oh,
it has
great.
been amazing to have you here, man. And I think the three steps that we learned from you is like go to your audience, answer the questions, do not be intrusive, and build a community. And it's just like I think everything that you have done, you can patronize it and be successful. And hopefully, real estate crowdfunding will be acquired by. I know a few guys like, well, anyway, some of the companies that some you probably in the show in a few months that or years that someone acquire you. Ian, it's a pleasure to have you in the show.
Thank you so much, and I appreciate your kind words. It's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Okay, if you can wait 1 second, I'm going to.
Hmm.